A US court has won a default judgment that Iranian officials, including its supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, provided help to the 9/11 hijackers behind the worst terror attack on American soil. The lawsuit was filed by the families of the atrocity's victims. There was no Iranian representation in the court. Let's talk about this with Jamal Abdi from the National Iranian American Council, representing the Iranian community in the United States. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. So how valid do you think this court ruling is?
Look, I don't see any evidence that is particularly compelling that Iran had a direct role in 9/11. I think this is really scary that we're going down this pathway in which, 10 years after the September 11th attacks, 10 years after we saw first Afghanistan and then Iraq fingered for those attacks and then invaded by the United States, that we're now hearing the same type of rhetoric about Iran. Like I said, everything that I've seen has been very tenuous. There's allegations that the travel of some of the hijackers was facilitated through Iran. I don't see a direct role at all. So
you're suspicious of the timing of it, of course, coming at a time when a lot of Western countries are also ratcheting up the pressure as well against Iran, sanctions, etc., over those claims about the fact that Iran's suspected of developing nuclear weapons. You think there's some sort of kind of tie-in here with the timing, yeah?
Well, look, I know that we have seen in Washington, there's been a campaign in New York to link Iran very publicly to 9/11. On the anniversary of those attacks earlier this year, there was a billboard campaign in Times Square with Ahmadinejad's face and something along the lines of, the silent partner of Al-Qaeda. There's clearly a campaign right now to try to ratchet up the pressure for yet another U.S. attack on a Middle Eastern country. And I just think this is so dangerous. And if you go back to when those attacks happened, immediately afterward, Iran condemned the attacks. There were candlelight vigils on the streets of Tehran in solidarity with the Americans who lost their lives. You saw Iran cooperating with the United States in helping topple the Taliban, who is an enemy of Iran, as was Osama bin Laden. What we're seeing now is this strange self-fulfilling prophecy process, and I'm worried that this is exactly what we saw with Iraq. This is a campaign to go to war.
This ruling was reached even though the Iranian side didn't appear in court. I guess it was kind of naive, you'd think, to expect Iran's supreme leader to come to a Manhattan court, no?
Well, yeah, I don't expect the supreme leader to be traveling anywhere because he's frankly pretty cloistered in Iran. But I do know that, first of all, the victims of terrorism do deserve the right for justice. So to say that they shouldn't pursue justice, I don't think that that's right. And we also do know that Iran has been represented in similar cases before related to attacks that have been committed by Hamas and Hezbollah. So there is a precedent for this type of thing.
And Jamal, this court ruling also said that Iran's Shia leadership and Al-Qaeda Sunni operatives set aside their mutual hostility to unite against the US. How likely a scenario is that?
Well, I don't find it particularly likely before 9/11, but I will say that given what has happened in the Middle East since those attacks, with the war in Iraq, with the war in Afghanistan, you have natural enemies like Iran who had a real interest in seeing a stable Afghanistan and has an interest in seeing a stable Iraq, finds themselves now with an interest in not opposing groups that they would otherwise be opposed to, like the Taliban. So, like I said, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's very dangerous.
Jamal Abdi from the National Iranian American Council, thank you.
Thanks.